Hi everybody, another episode of Based in Reality. This time we're going to jump right into a topic that is a little scary, and it is called aggro-terrorism. And I've been hearing about this for a couple of years now, but I'm just now realizing how serious it is, and I want my listeners to educate themselves, to be very aware of this threat to national security. So about a week ago there was a large panel press release, and it was put on. I mean, the main facilitator seemed to be the Secretary of the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Susie Rollins, and she let us know that basically the background here is that agroterrorism includes the manipulation of our farming systems, and that can include our rivers, it can include our forest lands. So an example of agroterrorism might be setting fire to our forests or contaminating a river, which is used to feed farmland water. Another example of agroterrorism would be manipulating the seeds that farmers use, using bio genetics to contaminate and harm those seeds. Another example, and this actually just happened very recently, there were two arrests in Michigan of two Chinese nationals who were smuggling pesticides. So they were bringing in chemicals that could totally harm our crops. A third arrest, another Chinese national was peddling manipulated, damaged seeds. So those are three recent arrests. But Pete Hedgeseth was present at this press conference, and he let us know that there are a number of active investigations. Okay, the number was 100 active investigations by the FBI on these active agroterrorism situations. So to get into a little more detail, I just want to share briefly that what is happening is that contracts are being made from Chinese-owned companies with our states, with the U.S. Department of Agriculture in various states. And so one of the folks that was there, Peter Navarro, who is serving as White House counsel in our current Trump administration, he spoke about 70 contracts, all from countries of concern, have been canceled. These were business agreements that were going to, have a lot of interaction with our farmland and our supply chain. And he mentioned that, our farmland, our farm supply chain has a lot of vulnerabilities. And because of that, we need to home shore our supply chain. So instead of getting things that we can grow right here, instead of getting them from Mexico or Europe, we need to make sure that we are providing all that is needed here. It doesn't mean that we can't, I don't think he cares so much about free trade or equal trade. I like that word, equal trade. But the point is we need to be able to provide that for our own people. That needs to just always be a given. If we want to do something above and beyond that, and this is my own personal opinion, that could be acceptable. But we have to make sure that we can take care of ourselves. Another speaker was Governor Sarah Huckabee of the great state of Arkansas, and she had a soundbite moment, and I want to repeat it because I thought it was so good. She said that for a country to survive, it must be able to feed itself, fuel itself, and fight for itself. So it makes me think back to historical times when an empire would come into whole cities to take them, and what they would do is they would build a whole village. I mean, they had thousands and thousands of soldiers that would encapsulate the city walls of that population that they wanted to take over. and they would control the water and the food supply coming into the city until they starved out the soldiers, starved the people out to the point of surrender. So we need to know that there are all kinds of ways to get to the U.S. Terrorism is one of those ways, hurting our grid, hurting our farmland. So Americans just need to wake up and smell the coffee, become aware, do what we're doing right now, you know, be checking on all these different news sources and informational sources that are just, you know, more neutral, and just think for yourself, right? So type in the comments, protect USA, if you agree that shoring up the security around our farmlands, our rivers, our forests, is very, very important to our security, and that needs to be first. I don't need to call it a MAGA move, okay? Everybody should be interested in this, right? I want to hear my Democrat listeners. I want to see their comments that yes, they believe in protecting our food supply from agro-terrorists, which in this case, it's predominantly China, although it could be other nations. Which brings me to some comments that were delivered by Alabama's governor, Mr. Tommy Tuberville. And he informed us that 2.2 million acres have been purchased by China in just his state alone. It's all farmland. What does China need our farmland for? They are a huge geographical, land mass, their country is. Why do they need our farmland? They don't. And neither does any other country for that matter. And so there's a point that I want to get to about that, but before I do, Mr. Tuberville explained how this has occurred. He said that 150,000 farms have now been sold in our country, and 25,000 people who were farmers have given up farming. He explained that prior to the previous president's administration, prior to Biden, a machine called the cotton picker could be purchased for $750,000 in the state of Alabama. And I guess that was doable. I mean, you can see these thin margins for the farmers. So that's what the case was. But when Biden came in, the lobbyists for some of these companies started doling out the dollars to our legislators, and then before you knew it, the cotton picking machine was $1.5 million. What's a farmer to do? That's a wipeout situation right there. Also, diesel fuel went to $5 a gallon. Okay, so when their fuel costs nearly double, how are they going to fuel up their machinery? So these farmers were choked out. And so they ended up selling off their family land. Some of these folks are generational farmers. And who did they sell to? China, who was just waiting in the wings to grab up this land. So doesn't it seem like it could be a concerted effort, cooperation, where we have lobbyists who are handing out the money to our politicians who take it for their campaign war chest or whatnot. And then, boom, these companies start doubling their prices, and now our farmers are selling to China. I mean, 1 + 1 appears to be 2. So in Trump's big and beautiful bill that just barely passed, there was a measure in that called referential pricing, and that's going to control the prices. That's going to bring that to a halt, the crazy out in orbit prices that were being charged that killed our farmers. So I just want to give a shout out to the farmers right now, and that whole community, because it is a calling to be a farmer. I mean, if you compare that industry to the medical industry or, high tech, you don't have that many farmers. And we need to be very good to our farmers and beholden to them in terms of protective measures to enable them to have some kind of profit to keep doing farming. And the Secretary of the USDA Susie Rollins was saying that we are going to claw back that land. Now, I think that that should be able to be done very quickly. All land, farmland, owned by foreign countries. It doesn't matter if they're an allied nation or China, which is, okay, definitely not an ally, as we're seeing more and more. But my point to that is that that should be across the board nationally. That is what she's saying they're going to do. I believe every state, and maybe it's a federal law, maybe it's in this 7-point legislation that's coming out, but I hope it is. And if it's not, every state should do as Nebraska has done. And the governor of Nebraska, the Honorable Governor Palin, was present at this conference, and he has done that very thing. He has said no country can own any land. Well, he specifically said China cannot own any land. But my dream wish is that no country can own any land in the U.S. I know that we have companies here, Toyota, Honda, that have manufacturing plants in the U.S. and they employ Americans. That's all fine and well, but they don't get to own our land. They can lease our land, and that's the policy of many other countries. There is no foreign citizen, foreign entity like a company, foreign country backing a company. None of that gets to own American soil, period. That is what we need to be clawing back. Not just China, because an ally today could be an enemy tomorrow. We don't know. And also, an ally today could be secretly having a partnership with an enemy country. We need to just wake up and assume a completely different type of thinking. It's put America first, but you don't have to call it that if that irritates you. If you have the, orange man fear syndrome going on, don't even put that outside of the context. Just think about your own security. What do you do to secure your family at your house? What do? You make sure there's a lock on the gate. You make sure you lock your house up at night. Maybe you have a Ring camera. You do things to protect your own. And that's what this is about. So, for those who are, on the left but are reasonable, they care about their own families, then they would also care about the homeland, because this is our greater family. So I feel like things like this, I wish that we would hear from Democrats, okay, in the comments. Definitely put in there, protect USA, if you agree that aggro-terrorism is a thing and we need to keep it from happening. If you actually believe in that reality, that there are 100 live investigations going on right now by the FBI on aggro-terrorism cases, if you believe Secretary Susie Rollins saying that we just had 3 arrests right off the bat, we just canceled 70 individuals who had contracts with us that were from countries of concern. They were engaging in contractual terms with our U.S. Department of Agriculture. She has canceled those contracts because they're all originating out of countries of concern. Of course, this to me is just common sense. It's just a return to common sense. Is it populism? Because I talk about populism a lot on this channel. Yeah, because we're talking about protecting the food supply of everyone, not just mom and dads, but everybody, the elites, everybody in our country. So, it isn't populism. Is it partisan? It shouldn't be partisan. So I would really love to hear the young folks, the under 40s who are in that woke community. I would like to hear what they have to say. If you guys even listen to this channel, I would love to hear whether or not you agree with this, because I believe that we want to come together where we can in this country. There is so much division, but there should be things that even the woke crowd and maybe the more establishment crowd or conservative crowd maybe would be a better use of terms. Maybe not establishment, but I want to hear what the woke think about protecting the USA, because I think that we can come together on that. And maybe there's other places that we can come together, like the homeless episode that I did. I think we can all agree that we don't think it's a good idea for children to be not going to school because they're living in a tent or they're hiding out, in a trailer at a campground. You know, that's where they're living. I mean, I say hiding out, and I mean that they're not in school. They are living in a trailer because the parents can't get them to school because they are homeless. You know, that we need to care about that situation, and actively, quickly roll up our sleeves, assign the budget dollars, and have a very nuts and bolts basic plan to do something about that, and not get, you know, caught up in analysis paralysis, and just overthinking these things too much. You know, maybe we need to take a page out of the business handbook, okay? It doesn't have to be Trump, but I mean, if we think about things the way the military thinks, you know, the objective and how we're going to get there and what is the contingency plan, you know, and we just make things happen. You have to remove corruption. You have to remove these shared split interests where you have a divided heart on things and you can't execute, you know. So anyways, that was a different episode. But to wrap this up, I'm grateful for the new legislation. I'm grateful for Governor Palin from Nebraska. Let me conclude with this. He spoke for a few minutes and he said that what he's done in his state, a couple of things he's done is, one, he has said flat out no to any Chinese-owned company who wants to sell seeds to Nebraska farmers. The company name that he discussed was Syngenta. So Syngenta used to be an American company, and then the Chinese bought it. And he has said to them, nope, you can no longer do any business with Nebraska farmers. So the Syngenta headquarter, leadership sold off the Syngenta business module in Nebraska. And now an American family-owned company has bought it. But that's what we have to do, guys. We have to take a stand. We have to know who the enemy is, who is not necessarily for us, and we have to stop doing business with them. That doesn't mean that there aren't other, maybe Chinese companies that we can do business with. I'm not saying that it's just a no holds bar situation with China, but if we have, and we have documented cases of agro-terrorism, like I mentioned, those Chinese national arrests, boom, flag up, decision made. You know, when it comes to the heart and soul of feeding our people. This is not, a case of buying, pencils from China. No, we're talking about our food supply system, our food supply chain. The other thing that Governor Palin did in the awesome state of Nebraska is he said no land anywhere within the state may be purchased and owned by China. And here's where I'm going to jump in and say, wait a minute. I say no country can own land in the U.S. I don't care if they're an ally. I don't care if it's England. No country can own our land. If you want to put up a manufacturing plant, you're a Toyota and you're going to employ Americans, great. You may lease the land that the building is on. Period. This is what other countries do, guys. And it's just high time that we smell the coffee, wake up, and become more guarded with our precious resource of land. Okay? And people are a precious resource as well. That's why I did that homeless episode. So every state needs to be doing this. Every state needs to have a law that says no land may be owned. I'm not talking about just farmland. I'm talking about the land near our bases, which is being bought up by China, the land near our military depots, the supply store for the military. No. And that happened here in Nevada, my state, where we had a company that was owned by Singapore buy up the land near our military supply store. But then they turned around and sold it to China. So this is why I'm saying it doesn't matter if you're Singapore, England, Mexico, France. It doesn't matter. You may not own our land and then turn around and sell it to an enemy, or just own it outright, because an ally today could be an enemy tomorrow. We just need to grow up in our thinking on this topic. If you don't agree, please sound off in the comments and let me know what you could possibly be thinking. And I can reference that on a follow-up video. Okay, guys, Have a great day. Thanks, Mark.